Welcome to today's webinar, Closing the Frustration Gap. My name is Brad Blickstein. I'm your host today, and I am here with Rick Heller, CEO of ScanLogic, and also Jessica Mugge, Director of Client Services at ScanLogic. Thank you for joining us today for this. It's going to be a quick 30-minute session. In the first half or so, I'm going to sit down with Rick. It's almost like a podcast format, and we're going to talk about the pervasive frustration gap in legal tech implementation. But to quote my man, Bruce Springsteen, you got to talk about a dream and try to make it real. So the second half today, we're going to, Jessica is going to take us through a demo of BillSync, which actually solves this problem and closes the frustration gap around e-billing and the e-billing crisis. So welcome, Rick. Welcome, Jess.
Hey, hi, everybody.
So Rick, we were together at the TLTF summit last week, and I'm still recovering. It was a whirlwind 3 days. 500 people from all walks of the legal tech ecosystem. But what was your biggest takeaway?
In one word, I would say wow, with big capital letters and an explanation point. The sharing of knowledge, the unbelievable ideas, concepts, the willingness to embrace new thoughts and ideas, the networking, the reconnecting with existing folks, developing new ones. Everything about it was just off the chart wow. And I guess my big takeaway is directly tied to this webinar, bridging the frustration gap or accelerating the value of legal tech. I heard a lot of the startup vendor pitches, and I picked up on a real common theme within that, and that was about half of them were clearly focused on how can I get this technology installed, which has always been the case, but more importantly, how can I get this technology installed, being used, and generating value as quickly as possible. And that was really cool to see that people are turned on to that idea.
Yeah, I found that so interesting because I feel like for so long it was software, 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 and not much focus was paid to implementation and adoption and getting value out of those tools. Is that what you mean when you talk about the frustration gap?
Yeah, absolutely. Let me describe it this way, because I've been on the buying side and I've been on the delivery and selling side for my 45-year career in legal tech. So from a sales perspective, as most people know, there's that cycle, right? You take someone from a suspect to a prospect and you close them, and there's that euphoria when you get ink on the contract, and there's excitement about how you're going to change the world for that firm and they're going to use your product. The firm is also excited about having bridged, made that decision, right? Come to that conclusion. Let's get it done. Let's get the contract signed. And for the sales side, there's massive excitement, but from the client side, they then start their frustration gap, right? They've signed it, they've spent all their energy, they've gotten a lot of people involved in selecting it. And then oftentimes it's, well, you're number 6 on the project list and we'll start it 3 months from now, 4 months from now. Now, that's not a technology problem. That's just, there's a lot to do in law firms and you've got to prioritize things. So I get that. But once you go through that process and your project starts up, it can take months, years. You can run into unexpected issues because of integration challenges with other workflows that exist in the firm already. And it can lose momentum and steam, which the firm gets frustrated about because they've made these decisions and they're not getting value from them. And oftentimes the suppliers get frustrated with it because they're not seeing their revenue and they're having to continue to poke and prod and figure out how to get projects moving, but more importantly, how to get people to use the product and get immediate value from it.
It's funny. It reminds me of my days as a solo when I would maybe, fly someplace, close a nice big prospect, spend the first half of the flight back, as Blickstein, the sales guy, elated, and then the second half of the flight is Blickstein's service delivery manager and terrified. And I think how pervasive is this problem with legal tech, Rick?
I think it's everywhere. I mean, the good news is you touched upon the beginning, the hardware. I mean, it used to be that was a significant problem, right? Okay, how many servers do we need to get? How do we get those servers installed? What's the specs associated with them? How do we connect within the infrastructure? Most of those challenges are gone, at least for the SaaS-based solutions, which is so cool to see because onboarding, at least at a rudimentary level, should be really straightforward. Flip a switch, provide people a web address, let them onboard themselves with setting up users and IDs and things of that nature. But I think the real challenge continues to be how do you get instant value? And that is not in terms of deployment and training. Those things are critically important. But today, everyone understands tech. They've used software. You don't have to have a training class. You don't have to gather people and teach them how to use a product. So if the product's written correctly. But I think, again, the frustration gap is incredibly real. I talked to a lot of people during TLTF about that. And I heard, some CIOs at law firms say, we want to select technology that we can get immediate value from. And immediate value, as they define it, is immediate use.
Do you feel like it sort of seems like we've sort of the rise of SaaS over the past 10 years has created a bit of a false sense of security. Back when there was, client server integration, kind of everyone knew it was going to take a while. You had to get in there. So, you had a travel budget for flying your implementation team out someplace. Do you think that SaaS has created a situation where for a while people just assumed it would be easier because everything's SaaS, and we're now finally starting to maybe internalize that it's still a process?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And don't get me wrong, there'll always be a process, right? There'll always be something that the firm has to do to notify folks that they're going to go with the new product. There has to be early adopters within the firm or what we used to call pilot groups. But unlike in the past, where you might take 3 to 6 months to get to that point to where the pilot group or early adopters would start putting their hands on the keyboard and start using it, SaaS-based products do offer the opportunity to plug and play, to use an old term that used to deal with hardware, right? And allow people to plug into the SaaS-based application and begin immediately playing with it, using it, getting value from it.
So what do we do about this? And I'm going to ask you this question from both the buyer perspective and from the seller, from the legal tech perspective. How do we close this frustration gap? How do we help make sure that end users get value faster so that everyone's happier sooner?
Um, there's probably a lot of ways to do that, and there's probably still ways in which it can't be done. But I would start by saying that in legal tech, to be successful as a company, I think you've got to do three things. Number one, you've got to solve a problem in a spectacular fashion. As I heard again at TLTF, there's dozens of fantastic solutions, and buyers don't have a chance to look at them all. So solve a problem in a spectacular fashion, partner with other people in the legal tech space, and integrate with anybody and everyone that your data needs to flow with. If you nail those two things, then in theory, or sorry, those three things, then in theory, the workflow doesn't really change. You can adapt to an existing workflow, and again, just to use the term plug and play, you can plug your SaaS-based solution directly into the firm, onboard client, onboard users, and get immediate hands-on keyboard to start getting benefit. But without those three key elements, I think the frustration gap will continue.
Great, got it. Um, but we've talked about this a lot. We've talked about the development of the Quick Start program and the Quick Start mindset to try to expedite that. Can you talk about that for a bit?
Yeah, well, let me expand a little bit on what I said, right? How do you get hands on keyboard as quickly as possible? Um, Obviously, you've got to be very specific on the problem you're solving. Your solution has to solve the problem. And I think at the same time, just to reiterate, if you're introducing a new workflow, that's going to create so many different touch points with other data within the firm that you're climbing an uphill battle, and you're probably contributing to the frustration gap. So what we do at ScanLogic is we allow people to use our products without changes to workflow, without any new integrations that are required, and in a quick manner. We've onboarded clients in as fast as 2 days to where they have their hands on the keyboard and they're starting to get immediate value because the data we're delivering back to them is instantly telling them whether or not they are going to have a problem with their e-bills, whether they're going to have violations when submitting those entries, those time and cost entries to clients.
So, in certain circumstances, I can start getting results in just a couple days.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We've spent the last year perfecting the onboarding to bridge the frustration gap, or as we like to say, accelerating the value of legal tech, right? Firms back in my day as a CFO of large law firms, trying to even calculate the return on investment for technology was nearly impossible because of the fact that it took so long before people could start using it and seeing value from it. Today, we can articulate that value proposition as part of our sales presentation, as part of our pitch. We have data that clearly shows by using our solution, firms can get a 16.6% increase in realization. Now, when I say they can do that within 2 days, I don't mean for every single e-bill, but I mean that they can use our quick start program, onboard a couple of clients, onboard a couple of OCGs, onboard the people that are working on those clients, and with very little training, get immediate value from that process.
Got it. So I think we sort of concluded our you know podcast portion of the webinar. And maybe it's time for the demo portion of the webinar, because I think it'd make a ton of sense to show people what we're talking about here.
Yeah, let's jump in and take a look at the product. I think what Jess, I'll turn the screen over to you, and if you could, there we go. So I think it's important to orientate people on what a product does before you start showing people the product. So for us, BillSync is solving three key elements: OCG compliance, invoice submission, and payments and appeals. Ultimately, what that means is, how do you bill your client successfully, timely, accurately? How do you get paid? And if you don't get paid because of some errors and issues to resolve, how do you resolve those quickly and easily? So let's take a look at the first piece of the puzzle, the OCG compliance.
So this is our OCG Live. This is where you can upload your OCGs and our system will automatically pull all the rules. So here you can actually go in and you can customize these fields, but right now we just have client name and client number, and upload an actual PDF file of your OCGs. But I'll show you the actual OCGs we have in our demo system. So there's 3 of them in here. I'm going to take a look at this one.
This is really cool, and I'll tell you the genesis behind this is when we went to market and we would the bridging the frustration gap has been a journey, right? We didn't figure out how to do that from day one, but this component of the product was built to bridge an element to that frustration gap, in the sense that we'd go to our clients to onboard them and we'd say, send us your OCGs. And You'd think that that would be an easy request, but what we found was clients were struggling with where are the OCGs? What's the most current one? Um, is there any sensitive data in there that we don't feel comfortable sharing with a vendor? Et cetera, et cetera. And so what we did was we built a place where all of the OCGs could be in the firm could be managed and stored within our system because we use those OCGs to generate a rule set.
So as Rick mentions, we generate the rule set, and you can see here, we've pulled the rules and we've separated them into different categories. So here you'll see some fee rules, some cost rules. And actually we had one firm that was using our system come back to us and said, it would be really cool if you also pull the data security rules so we know what to do in an instance of a data security breach and things like that for each client. So we've also started doing that as well with the data security rule sets. If we go back up here to the fee rules, let's just take an example here. Let's just click on one of these. It'll actually take you to the rule set, and then you can also change the name of the rule if you need to, if you want to create your own kind of custom categories. Let's take this one as an example, inappropriate staffing levels. This is also a common one. I'll show you later in our BillSync module, where it's attorneys performing the work of a paralegal. That usually gets triggered and it gets rejected by the e-billing portals. So here you can actually see the actual rule here, using lawyers for tax for which non-lawyer could have been used. That is a very common violation within the e-billing portals. And anybody that is submitting these e-bills probably knows that and has issues with that. It's very common. So I'll show you that later into our BillSync system.
It's really cool, right? Not only from a central repository of the OCGs and the rules associated with them, but we're actually dealing with now the time and billing or time and cost compliance piece of e-billing directly from individual clients' rule sets. There's no generic rules apply. This is what you, the law firm, have agreed to with your client. And we know it's hard to deal with the compliance piece. We believe we're making it extremely easy with our BillSync solution. So, Jess, let's jump into what happens next, which is, we scrub. We like that term. We scrub the entries against the OCG rule sets, and then we allow the firm to cleanse the entries, perfect the entries, make them right.
Yeah, so in this demo system, these are all scrubbed entries. We have them categorized. Right now it's red and green. So the red ones represent items that we believe will be rejected by the e-billing systems. Green are the ones we feel aren't going to be rejected based on the wording in the OCGs. So the green ones are good. And then we've also recently added a different category, which is yellow. And as an example for that, one firm came back to us and said, well, these ones that you're flagging, I know it violates the OCG, but we don't typically have a problem with those going through the portal and being accepted. So we said, okay, well, we'll still flag them, but we want to make it a cautionary flag. So we'll categorize those as yellow, just so you're aware of them in case you want to make changes to them. So these are all items. Obviously, the red are the ones that are going to need to be worked on and need changes. So I'll find an example here that we talked about earlier, staffing issue. So paralegal work being done by an attorney. So here's one example. And what you could do is actually go directly in here and change the narrative to justify and make sense of why an attorney had to do this work. And just change the narrative directly on here. And also you can change other things as well. You just have to click through here and easily change it directly in our system, and these changes will be implemented.
So the scrubbing and cleansing is, again, putting the firm in a position to submit a bill that is in compliance with the OCGs or in compliance with what the firm has agreed to with their client. Without this tool, it's incredibly complicated, nearly impossible, very difficult. And again, as we've onboarded clients, this process you've seen so far, we're about a day into that onboarding, right? Upload your OCG, you get an email with your login, upload your time and costs, you get access to that data directly as Jessica's showing it to us here. Let's take a look. Let's review where we are in our workflow, if we could, because we've covered the first piece of OCG compliance. Invoice submission is our next piece. It sounds easy, right? It sounds real easy. What's so hard about submitting invoices? Well, it's not easy, and it's very complicated because most firms are dealing with a dozen, some firms are dealing with 2 dozen, 3 dozen e-billing portals, e-billing gateways, the place where they have to submit the invoices. And each company has a different piece of software requiring detailed and specific knowledge by an e-billing specialist. So that person has to log into a platform, maneuver through the program to determine how to submit the bill. And it's different for every single one. And in some firms, someone might be an expert on time metrics and be able to do that quickly and easily, but they don't know how to do it on counseling. And of course the process continues. So we aggregate it. We make it so you submit every single e-bill, regardless of platform, directly to us, and our BillSync solution pushes those out to any and all platforms, knows how to inject those directly into the e-billing gateway, and you're off and running. The other thing that's really cool about what we do with the invoice submission is we do a pre-validation. So you've already scrubbed your data, you've gotten your data in compliance, but there's often some technical challenges with uploading the invoice. There are some portals that, believe it or not, classify classify paralegals as legal assistants, but your time and billing system classifies it as a paralegal, and so that's going to fail when you submit that lead file. We do a pre-validation check, and we're able to correct all of those issues before the submission occurs. So what seems like an easy step, invoice submission, is incredibly complicated, but again, we accelerate the value in legal tech. We help people get benefit and close the frustration gap instantly by making this a drag and drop submission, and everything happens for them that otherwise could have taken days and multiple people involved. Let's move now to the final stage of the workflow, which is payment and appeals, right? Or appeals and payment, however you want to kind of think about that. Our product increases realization rate. It decreases non-billable and administrative time. I think you've seen that in the compliance piece and the e-bill submission piece. But I think the real exciting, they're all exciting pieces, but as a ex-CFO of Big Law, the real exciting piece is, when do I get paid? How do I get paid? And so, Jess, you want to walk us through and show us the payment and appeal piece, please?
Yes. So in this instance, I am viewing it as an attorney, or it's up to the firm how they want to process these appeals, if they want to directly have the attorneys add any kind of supporting documentation or comments. But we'll take one of these as an example. So this one, travel time, should also be separately designated. If attendance of this event was virtual and required no travel, that must be specifically noted. So in this instance, you would either want to add some kind of documentation to support your travel plans, or whether it was virtual or not. So they could easily just do it here through our system. They can add documentation or insert some comments. That way, when the appeal is processed, all that information goes with it.
Again, BillSync is managing the appeal and payment piece as an aggregated system. So whether you're using one e-billing portal or whether you're using 30, you're going to live within our product, remove the frustration of having to have experts in all of the different gateways, and process your appeals and track your payments faster than you've ever been able to before without spreadsheets.
So Rick and Jessica, if I'm seeing that properly, if I have like a $72 parking bill and they kick it back out because I didn't include the receipt, in the old workflow, I got to go, oh, well, they're on time metrics. I got it where, like, I don't normally upload receipts after the fact. I got to figure out it here. I don't care what they use. As long as I have that receipt, I can slide it right in the interface that you guys just showed. And there's no reason for me to not give up on that appeal, even though it's only $72, because it's a few seconds of work to solve the problem.
Yes, that is correct. Our system makes it very easy. And like Rick said, one of the biggest issues is law firms having to use many different e-portals. And our system aggregates all that, and you can do everything directly within our system. But yeah, it's pretty straightforward as far as the system goes. We've made it as user-friendly as possible. We're always open to suggestions.
And there's other, obviously this is a quick demo, right? There's other elements and key components of this. So for example, there's a write-off module. So, we're never going to be successful in getting 100% realization, although increasing a firm's realization rate by 16.6% is quite amazing. But there will ultimately be some items that you might appeal, and that appeal will not be accepted. You've got to process that write-off now in your accounting system, which again is incredibly cumbersome. And if you've got dozens of them or hundreds of them, it's a full-time job of at least one person sitting down and processing the write-offs. With our system, there's a routing and approval piece. So if the firm has a complex approval piece for writing something off, they can do that within our system. But moreover, once the item's been declared a write-off, we simply process that write-off directly into your time billing and accounting system without, again, any human interaction. So we're automating the process, which heretofore has taken manual effort. So a lot of cool things in that. The whole approval and routing piece is, dynamic, and we've had some firms that have created this if then, as law firms often do, right? 20 people have to be involved in approving something. No problem. We accommodate that. It provides a complete record trail, audit trail, so that if someone says, why'd we do this? We've got all of the history associated with that built into our system, as opposed to a spreadsheet or a Word document or through emails. So why don't we talk for just a minute, if we can, about my claim of I can get you onboarded using our system and extracting value from it within a matter of days. Again, it's real simple for us. Quick start, very little touch points with the firm, very little need to have meetings or planning sessions. Our simple ask is upload one or two OCGs, upload the time and costs associated with those, tell us who you want to see the scrubbed, who you want to see the data that we've scrubbed, cleanse it, create your leads file, provide it to us, track your payment through BillSync, and you're off and running. Now, we recognize that process as a quick start program is limited in scope based upon a couple of OCGs, whereas most firms have lots and lots and lots. We also recognize that quick start program is designed to deal with a limited number of users. But I would argue that bridging the frustration gap, that's exactly what you have to do. You've got to get a taste of the system. You've got to see it in operation. You've got to see value from it. You've got to have people using it that will be a testimony to the value. And you've got to have then a clear and concise path to continuing to get more people involved. And for us, again, that's real easy. Give us more OCGs and give us more data associated with OCGs. Tell us which additional people you want using the system. You can do that on a, you can add, you can add those as you, the firm, want to do that, whether it be over the course of a month or multiple months. And so far our experience has been that everyone that's done the Quick Start program has added and become a full-fledged client by saying, my gosh, there's incredible value in this. We want every single one of our e-billing clients being managed by BillSync.
So the net as I understand it, as we sort of wrap up, is so if I got an OCG in one hand, my hairiest one, and I got the pre-bills for that client for this month in this hand, I can upload those to you or send those to you, and I can have value back from BillSync in a couple days.
Absolutely. Exciting times. I mean, I call this an e-billing crisis because, clients aren't happy and law firms aren't happy. And that's not good for anybody. And they're not happy because this is a really difficult problem to solve. And so at the outset, I said, if you're going to be successful in legal tech, you've got to solve a problem in a spectacular fashion. You've got to partner with others, and you have to integrate with other pieces and elements of data within the firm. We're doing all of that, and we welcome firms to get in touch with us, and we'd love to show you the power of our Quick Start program and accelerating the value of legal tech by implementing BillSync and solving your e-billing crisis by increasing realization, decreasing non-billable staff time, and increasing how fast you get paid.
Great. Well, we're out of time today, but that's fascinating. Like, I mean, I've never heard of a tool that can provide real value and make your clients happier in such a short period of time. Even if that's not enterprise-wide yet, it's still a good chunk of value immediately. Great. So Rick, Jessica, thank you so much. That demo was great. And look forward to our next interaction.
Right on. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.